Today I have a pretty cool show for you. I'd like to introduce you to the idea of cultural context, aka insights or even tension by many. Stay tuned. You are watching.
Culture is a word we often use but seldom fully understand. So I think about culture through a Durkheimian lens. Emile Durkheim, one of the founding fathers of sociology, he talks about culture as a system of conventions and expectations that demarcate who we are and what people like us do. And typically, my identity, and people like me, we're the characters in the story, often the protagonists, right? So because of who I am, I have a certain set of beliefs and ideologies about the world, a way of seeing the world, frames by which I translate the world. And because I see the world a certain way, I show up in the world a certain way through the artifacts that I don, the behaviors that are normative, and the language that I use. What we're missing is it's not information. We have more data than ever before, tons of information about people. What we're missing is intimacy, closeness, proximity. And if we have that closeness, that proximity, then we're able to identify, these are the language that they use. This is the behaviors that are normative. This is the artifacts that we don. These are the beliefs that we subscribe to. And the better we understand them as marketers, the better our chances of connecting with them. Not because my razor's sharper, my battery lasts longer, and my car goes faster.
Right.
I mean, there's tons of products that we buy that are like inferior to more superior products. But because of what the brand means, we're more inclined to invest ourselves in it.
Shout out to Dr. Marcus Collins, who has a great book called For the Culture. Just continuing into the idea of culture, as artists, I've always believed that our job is to reflect what's happening in the world around us, our point of view on what's happening with the culture, what's happening outside of our doors, what's happening in the world. That can be anything from art, that can be music, that can be all types of things. Sometimes I like to call this pop culture because the word culture is such a hard word that you have to define for people from time to time. It's the power behind what motivates us, what we buy, what we do, how we act. Just make sure you're clear on your conversation around culture. It's been my expertise that depending on whose mouth the word culture comes from can create confusion. Make it clear you're talking about pop culture as well as the systems or habits that people develop in the world around us. Culture, honestly, can be a very tricky word. It's a word that comes up all the time, so be careful with it. Don't over-embellish it, don't overuse it just because it becomes stale after a while. With that said, let's go to the idea of what it takes for a brand to really get itself in culture. To become part of culture, insight needs to speak to culture. Otherwise, your ad is just a brand kind of talking to itself, right? We see that happening all the time. And so those are the things that we really have to pay attention to. There's some really powerful ads that really say something or create emotion, make you laugh, make you smile, make you think. And those are the ads that really deal with culture and understanding culture, really. But if there's no real connection, then again, it's just an ad or a brand talking to itself. And at that point, no one really cares, right? So, you just really want to be careful with those types of ads, how they interpret the message, and then the most important part, how they are remembered. The other key part is the nostalgia it creates. It lends itself to the conversation, right? It gives us something to communicate about. It gives us something to talk to our friends about, talk to coworkers about. You're at a party networking. It gives you something to communicate with other people about, which is really cool. And it's becomes something that when you look at the idea of music and everything else, nostalgia is a key part in that. So continuing on, before you do anything, write out your argument and keep it simple. This is known as your tension. Tension is actually one of my favorite topics to really talk about for a very long time. I had a hard time really understanding how to approach tension or even what tension was, which is really just your point of view, the polar opposites of what you talk about. That's why when you see movies like Captain America or you see a lot of Marvel movies, the tension is in the characterization of your villain. I remember Black Panther, which had a very powerful villain. But to most people, this wouldn't even be a villain. It's a guy who's experienced certain things in the world, his point of view, the culture that he was around, the tensions that he had to deal with, and that created a really big tension. Tension refers to the creation of an argument, not always literal, or a sense of discomfort or conflict to capture an audience's attention or drive home a message. And so this is very important when we talk about the idea of driving home a message. Again, we don't want a brand that really just speaks to itself. What are we trying to say out in the world? That's the really important part. Sometimes it's great to have an enemy. Enemies are what make the work really interesting. With that said, let's hear directly from an award-winning strategist and a legendary creative.
Tensions are like the Wild West, where it is lawless and the townspeople are hiding and need someone to come and save them. We need to understand why they are hiding and what the problem is. The tension acts as a motivator. Using this analogy, it's like someone stepping up as the sheriff to take on the task of helping the townspeople. So in this instance, the brand acts as the sheriff, the one that comes to help the townspeople by getting rid of the problem. If the strategist's job is to find the consumer problem, which is normally the tension point, then they use this tension to add drama through visual words, perspective, and or reframing in the creative brief, so that the creatives can solve this problem. Tensions are emotive. They provide your campaign with a hook because they are not just topical, but resonate with your audience. This then becomes the motivator to drive your campaign forward. It's the creative's job to use the tension point to add drama to the situation or dramatize your brand's unique selling proposition to address your target audience's problem. The creative solution is then like a holstered gun, ready to be drawn and fired, leaving a thunderous crack, which causes the townspeople to erupt in joy.
Perhaps most interesting are the cultural tensions. There are many to explore around any and every product category. For instance, take America's fractured relationship with food. I want that 55 cheese pizza with a hot dog crust, right? And then we got to go to the gym and work it off and then try to get into skinny jeans. My friend strategist Chris Kochik says a cultural tension is the articulation of something wrong in the world, something that needs changing and is addressable by the brand. It doesn't matter where we find these tensions, okay? Any tension will do because all drama is conflict, right? Every movie you've ever seen, every comic book you've ever read, every sitcom you've seen, it's all conflict. It has conflict at its core. It's protagonist versus antagonist. It's two opposing energies.
I want to give a big credit to Strategy with Julian Cole, and the interview with Luke Sullivan was brought to us by Stan Talks, a famous podcast. You can find both links to the full video below in my description, but great perspectives from strategy and a creative point of view. I'd like to point out Luke Sullivan's book, Hey Whipple Squeeze This, is a great reference for creativity as well. I've personally read it a few times and consistently go back to it. So make sure that you also check it out. Let's get into some specific examples of context and insights and how they turn into work. But I want to give a disclaimer. All proofs of work shown here are produced projects, and not all works were produced by myself, but by friends and associates I admire or I've worked with. This is for educational purpose only, so I hope that you get a lot from it. Let's take a look at how some enemies informed a pitch meeting that teams at Wieden+Kennedy had around the Ford pitch that was done years ago. Elon Musk was an enemy that we pursued back then. We were dealing with car dealerships, and at the same time, Tesla was becoming a big name in electrical vehicles, which was huge at that time. And because we were working on Ford, we needed a kind of enemy to help push the idea that we were trying to get across when it came to Ford and what he really stood for. So Elon Musk being our enemy in this case. And here's an excerpt from that deck. Let's start with this guy, Elon Musk, as we all know, right? But this guy is obsessed with Mars, sells cars, but only so he can colonize space, is drilling a tunnel beneath LA because he doesn't like being amongst other people in traffic, and tweets things like, oh, by the way, I'm building a cyborg dragon. You get it. Whereas this man, Henry Ford, revolutionized American transportation and industry, championed inexpensive goods coupled with high wages for workers, left most of the vast wealth to his foundation, has a legacy that's as relevant today as it was a century ago. You can see the tensions that we were starting to draw between the two people, But this was just the tension that we leaned in for this particular pitch that we were working on. So when you look at it from that perspective, it becomes a thing of who would you rather have in your corner right now? And this is the tension that we built on when it came to this pitch. We felt that Ford needed a voice. People needed to see the good things that they were doing in the world. And so with this tension, it helped create a perspective. So our next project was a project done by Wieden+Kennedy in partnership between Nike and USA Basketball. And in the simplest terms, we talked about how this country feels more divided than ever before. And this was done years ago. And if you really pay attention to what's happening right now, not much has really changed, unfortunately. But this was the argument that we were putting forth with our attention back then. We also brought up how the men's and women's USA basketball teams have never been photographed together. Again, we led from the idea that there was a tension of separation that was happening in the world. And a great example that we gave was the USA men's basketball team and the USA women's basketball team. And we also gave a solution to this by creating a photographic shot where for the first time in history, you had the USA basketball team and the USA women's basketball team photographed together. They were able to give a little bit of their point of view. Look at the fashion, look at the styling, look at the coloring in the shot, look how it was postured. This is a very formal shot. It's fun, it's interesting, it pulls you in. It actually makes them feel very human. And so again, when we talk about insights and culture and perspectives, humanity is a major part of that. And so you want to be very, very careful in how you communicate that humanity, that environment, that perspective. It can go a long way. And so with great power comes great responsibility. That shot went into making what we now know as a music video. This music video was put together by Wieden+Kennedy in partnership with Chance the Rapper.
Some heroes in our story. We need highlights for a nightlight. We need glory for a while. We want results. We want results. Hit our families, hit our folks, bombs bursting in air. Oh, say, can you see America face? We share a pair of parents, took good care of the place. We just want narrators to pick up the narrative's pace. Put on a show for us, float for us, make it easy, make some mo for us. Save the day. We want a W, we tired of picking different sides. I got your jersey, just a different size. We all want you to be a buzzer beater. Find us a leader far from Silent Bobs and Cousin Skeeters. Through the perilous fight, want you to be brave. We want us a hero, we need a teammate. People, people, we the people would like you to know that wherever you go, we're right by your side. People, people, we the people would like you to know that wherever you go, we're right by your side. People, people, we the people would like you to know that wherever you go, we're right by your side. People, people, we the people would like you to know that wherever you go, we're right by your side. People, we the people like you to know that wherever you go, we're right by your side.
Yes, that was a commercial put together with the power of a message, right? We were talking about Team USA basketball, separation that was happening in the country, and it shows you the power of what you can do with great creativity. For our next showcase, this is another interesting project that was done by Wieden+Kennedy for a client. The idea was rooted around the Atlantic and how the Atlantic is very exhaustive around examining both sides of issues. And this was the message that was going out, because the tension in the world was very narrow-minded around what people really pay attention to. We always hear one side of a story, but we don't ever look at the other. And the Atlantic is a publication that really believes in understanding both sides. So with this project, the idea was to encourage people to question their own answers and go on a journey to explore all sides of thought, of messaging, of point of view. The tension in this case being the way people narrowly examine the world and how important it was for people to really get an understanding of that and show that, of course, the Atlantic is a publication that really cares about those different sides. This campaign featured people who were trying a little open-mindedness for size. I'll only show one here, which is actually one of my favorites. It's featuring Michael K. Williams, rest in peace, who was an amazing actor from The Wire and various other shows. Check it out here.
You think I'm being typecast? I don't know. You think this cat is typecast? It's a fucking cat, you know? Ain't got much choice. What if he moved to a new neighborhood? You know, hung out with the poodle crowd, did poodle things, you know, become a poodle. That's a good point. I mean, weird as shit, but we're good. And this whole metaphor is bullshit, yo. You think everybody don't got a role to play, huh? You think a white boy could have played Omar? You think you could play a president? I could. And I think we've seen the last black president for a while. I think you're gonna always be playing some version of Mike. Gangster Mike, old-timer gangster Mike, southern gangster Mike. But I'm not a gangster. Everyone that knows me knows that. Self-denying gangster Mike. Look, I picked these roles. Me, I made this path for myself. Did you? Yeah, did you? Or did they choose you? You think we would be doing what we doing if we had a choice? Face it, man, look, we from a certain type of people that come from a type of place that look a type of way. You know what that make us? Black. Typecast. If I were typecast, I'd be in jail or dead. But I'm here. I got out. Got myself out. You sure about that? Yeah.
Powerful spot, powerful message. But this is a type of advertising, this is the type of communication that we really want to do. And when we talk about tensions, not to beat a dead horse, tensions are some of the most powerful, important things that we can look for, right? Again, this tension comes from culture. It comes from the cracks that occur in our culture, the things that people want to talk about, the things that artists like to bring up. And so it's super important to really understand the purpose of tension. So moving on, tension doesn't always need to be complicated. I said this earlier, it's a simple thought, right? It's things that are happening around us, things that we can all acknowledge. Sometimes there may be things that most people don't even realize, but that tension is what helps bring that realization to everyone. It doesn't need to be all that serious as well. It just needs to create some context of the work. Remember this? Oh, hey, want to get some seamless? It brings your idea, your deck, whatever you're selling to the proof point. It proves your point of what you really want to say to your audience, to your client. It helps prove a point to your client to make the work that you're trying to push to them sellable. Very important. With that said, you can always come back to this video and check it out. I hope it really helped, but let's move on to part 2. You're watching the Alpha Nerd Creative YouTube channel. If you like what you learned and want to see more, please feel free to subscribe and like below, all the buttons below.